Hello, how are you?
Very good.
To start, one of my favorite things about this show is we're so used to kind of these fictionalized versions of serial killers starting at like what made them tick. And I love that this show does not do that. And it kind of sets you right off into kind of the meat of everything that we know about this man. For you, when you are playing a character who is, the kind of emotional pull for the audience, especially in that first episode, what for you was the hardest part about like making that connection right out the gate, especially when that is kind of the first thing audiences have to connect with?
Yeah. It's not an incredibly complicated answer, and it was something that felt a little bit like kismet for me, but there was something that I felt like I immediately just tapped into Elizabeth's story, and I don't know um, if it's because the details of it were so sort of heartbreaking. And I could sort of, it was so affecting reading about that night in particular and the last time she saw Rob. But there was something about kind of thinking about her and their family that every day I walked onto this set, it just felt like it was right there for me. I think it also had to do with the way that Patrick and the rest of the cast and crew are really like supporting that experience. Everybody was thinking about the victims and their lives. So it wasn't like it was something that I had to do myself. Everybody was really trying to hold those victims' lives close. And so I think there was something probably to that as well. But I did always feel like that connection was very immediate for me all through the process of it. It was that is not always the way it works, but this one in particular felt very, very hot.
Yeah, and I was gonna talk about that because it is one of the things I love most about this kind of look into a serial killer is it starts with the victim's family and like people who are dealing with their grief of losing someone because it's a serial killer often that gets sensationalized and people want to know about the man, not the people that he harmed. uh for you, how important was it to like throughout that process always make that victim storyline what I mean, obviously it's your storyline in the
Yeah.
show, but like how was it like to honor that in that way when it is so rare, especially with stories like that?
Yeah, I don't know that I would have signed on to this job otherwise, honestly. I mean, I talked with Patrick at length about it and with Michael, and Michael said that was what made him say yes. And I think that, especially this moment in time, wanting to feel like you have some real meaning to what you're making feels important. And especially in this case where there isn't really much to find there if you're looking for like what made Gacy to who knows, you know what I mean? It's like at that point you feel like, well, to what end are we looking into this? This isn't going to deliver something that we can hold on to. But in a way it felt more like in this moment in time to really look at these families going through this and look at these victims and to kind of walk in this pathway of kind of grief over time. It felt like there's something there to really honor. And that felt like it was worth making to me. That was a real reason for me to sign on.
I also love her determination too, because like in that first episode we see her kind of like, I don't want to say stalking because she was correct, but she is like outside the house. She's like
Yeah.
making it clear. She's like, I know something's not right. And when you see something like that on paper and you see that determination in a character, how much does that like inform you into who that person is, like in moments where they're not, grieving and trying to figure something out?
Yeah. No, it was huge. I mean, it was an interesting time because I think that, their standing in the community helped. We talked a lot about a sense of uh, uh, privilege in that this family at that time, they thought that the police would just help you find your son. They didn't expect anything else. And so it was also an interesting story for us to tell about a family that expected to be listened to and expected the systems to work, and then watching them sort of experience that disillusionment in real time, I feel like is a valuable story. I mean, obviously the systems don't work properly still, but to watch a family who expected things to work for them and then watch them get disappointed, I think is also, that's a story that a lot of people kind of that's the other side of the sort of the watching somebody with that kind of privilege and then understand what they don't understand.
Yeah. Which is like, I know I've said it before, but I was like, that's my favorite thing about like movies that you've been in, like Hell or High Water, where I'm like, it's talking about how
Yeah,
the system doesn't work.
that's
But
right.
I love this show. I think it's such a new and fresh way of telling stories like this. And so
Oh, I'm
thank you
so
for talking
glad.
with me today. I really appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thank you.
Have a good one.
You
Hi, Gabriel.
too.
How are you?
Hi, Rachel. I'm good, thanks.
Uh,
Is that my brother on your shirt?
it is. I'm at Comic-Con and it says I love Timothy Chalamet and it's just pictures of Pedro Pascal. It's like a weird cursed shirt I found online and I was like, I'm gonna wear
That's
it to
hilarious.
Comic-Con. And then realized I was interviewing you and I'm like, oh wait, shit. Well, I guess it's the
Yeah,
shirt I'm gonna have on. But
that's all right.
I wanted to start by saying you get to play one of my favorite roles within stories like this because one of my favorite movies is Zodiac because those detectives are like trying to be good at their jobs. Like they might not succeed, but they're attempting. And that is
Yeah,
a lot of what your role is in this. It is a man trying his best to kind of work with grieving parents and grieving family to figure out what's going on. For you, what is the like what was the most important thing about figuring out that character and knowing that like that is what a lot of audiences are going to connect with in a show like this, the man who's trying his best even if he is making mistakes along the way.
yeah. No, I think you hit it the nail square on the head. That was what was attractive about the part is I keep saying it was the mundanity of his heroism. The just the ordinariness of all of it, and how all these ordinary people were just completely their lives were completely sideswiped by this extraordinary circumstance. I think he is, dogged in his pursuit of not only justice but of truth and identity and trying to give these families back some, just the humanity of their child. And so yeah, I'm like you. I think when I listen in podcasts and true crime podcasts, it is always the acknowledgement of just their the humanity, and how imperfect they are, and that was good because I was looking for a role like that. I was looking for just a guy having troubles,
Yeah, a guy who have troubles who's trying.
yeah,
That's
trying his
what makes him
best.
great.
Yeah.
When I also love that this show, like I love that we're not focused on what made the man. Like we start right out the gate with like those 10 days leading up to kind of
Yep.
what we all know about John Wayne Gacy. And I also love that it is way more focused on victims than any other kind of story like this has been. When you got those scripts and you saw kind of like how this show was going to be formatted and how it was going to have its focus, was that part of the draw for you, or how did you kind of really feel like this was the right fit to be in one of those true kind of fictionalized versions of serial killers?
Yeah, yeah, no. We all keep talking about it, and probably to Peacock's dismay, but we uh, we were all very hesitant, right? Everyone at some point had something trigger inside them that I don't know. I don't know if we should do this. I don't know if I can do this. And then it was, it all started with Patrick, and it all started with Patrick's his intention, and you can see his intentions were pointed in the right direction, and it was very clear in the first three scripts that he gave me. He also came to me with saying that he kind of wrote this thing with me in mind. Of course, it's based on a real man, but there's just, I guess there's some quality that he was drawing on in writing it, and that was obviously anybody says that to you, you want to give it your full attention. But it was when I read the scripts that I knew that okay, this is important, and shaped in the right way and focused in the right direction. And then we just continue to make discoveries and to find more and more meaning and more reasons why we were doing it as time went on. It helped, of course, that I found myself in the company of just an incredible ensemble of actors who were just all people who I really appreciate and love, and all had a very workman's-like attitude and a very New York kind of theater state of mind. All of them, many of them, just New York theater, New York actors, which are just cut from a different cloth. And so there was a lot of hesitancy and fear early on that just dissipated and turned to meaning and drive and ultimately this show, this great series that we're all very proud of.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you because it's like it's a slight spoiler, but also if people know anything about John Wayne Gacy, they kind of know what happens. But at the end of the first episode, you have this very, very raw moment where you kind of make the discovery of what is actually going on in that house. And it is both devastating and like very captivating because it's like you're watching this man figure out like, okay, this is way bigger than any of us kind of thought. How is it when you're, filming something like that and you are in this tiny, tiny crawl space and it's like all very contained and dark, and like letting those emotions out with something like that that is going to be so impactful for audiences, but is also so important to the story as a whole?
Yeah, no, that was that first kind of descent into that space was yeah, it was really strong emotions, very kind of visceral experience. Of course, we are on a soundstage in a very in a space that is constructed and is obviously doesn't have all of the what was an absolute barrage on the senses for these men and who went down there. So it becomes just a task in trying to put yourself there in that suffocating space, dark, dank, toxic place. I mean, just everything in the air down there was already kind of trying to kill you. So I think I drew on. I tell the story before I was an actor. I was a flower delivery man, and they gave us the keys to all the funeral. I had the keys to all the funeral homes in Austin, because at times you would have to make deliveries, funeral wreaths, for funerals the next day after hours. So I had the keys to kind of the back area of a lot of these funeral homes. So I'm very aware of what that smell is, and to think that these men, this was their workspace until they tore the floor out and gave them a little bit of a respite from that claustrophobic space. That was their workspace. It was just a dense fog of death, to be quite frank. So yeah, it's just trying to draw on whatever sense memory you have to be there.
Oh, it made it very, very impactful ending of that episode. I can't wait for everyone to get to experience this because I love that you guys made something that was not just a rinse and repeat of what we've already kind of seen with these stories. And so I can't wait for everyone to experience it. And thank you so much for talking with me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great one.
I love Timmy C too.
Timmy C.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. To start, one of the things I love about the show is that it starts at a part where like everyone kind of knows what's going on. Like we know what happened when he got caught. We know that part of John Wayne Gacy's life, but we don't focus on just him. Like I love that it is all about the victims and getting to explore that grief. For you guys, when you're telling something like this, where it is often sensationalized for the serial killer in question, how important was it to be that change and make sure that it was focused on those victims and their families instead of kind of the man that he was?
Please. I think that focus was kind of everything for us. I know when I first met with Patrick, I was hesitant to really throw my hat in the ring to play this character because he's someone who has been covered almost ad nauseum from the moment he was arrested for the murder of Rob Peast. And you know, it almost feels like we know too much about him, was my initial take. And when Patrick told me about this idea of really focusing on the victims and the victims' families and sort of taking a different point of view on the story, I was drawn in, because the chance to sort of kind of correct history or sort of rewrite history in a way was very appealing. One of the easy examples is like, he's always portrayed as the killer clown in media. And that was a misdirect by the media at the time, because that sold newspapers. It was this interesting angle. But as far as we know, he didn't kill anyone dressed as a clown. He didn't lure boys back to his house because he was a clown. It was one of the many masks he wore to just kind of seem harmless and non-threatening. And so getting to sort of change the narrative of this story was appealing to me.
It was everything, as he said. I from the very, very beginning, and I give a ton of credit to our partners at Universal and at Peacock, because originally I turned the show down twice. And on the third time, I said, okay, if we're going to do it, we're going to do it this way. And from the very beginning until this second right now, the studio and the network have joined hands with us in order to try to tell these stories differently. And it is something that is a bit of an experiment, whether or not people are going to, you know, have the desire to watch what is more really a drama than it is really, you know, true crime. I am very intrigued by what the reception is going to be. I know that no matter what we have done is something that I think is special, and this is coming from someone who's done a lot of true crime in his past. This is the most special thing I've ever been party to, and so I'm proud of it. I'm proud of what everyone did, from the writers on up, and we'll see what everybody thinks soon enough.
Yeah, when it's so funny because when you brought up the killer clown thing, I'm at New York Comic Con and there's a welcome to Derry thing. Everyone's talking about Pennywise, and then obviously the next thing is people are like, yeah, remember John Wayne Gacy? And it's like that is like still what people think. And so I do love that this is challenging that in a lot of ways, and it's challenging what you do know, and it's also forcing you to kind of reckon with like, okay, but here are these victims that don't have their time. And I wanted to ask you, Patrick, you know, one of the most like kind of raw and jarring moments is at the end of that first episode where you see a detective finally discover like the basement and the crawl space. And it is like very, very impactful as an audience member watching that, because you know what that means and you know like what's going to happen. But it also reminded me a lot of why I love like Zodiac, because there are people who are trying their best and they're trying to do a good job. How important was that as a creative, making sure that like those people had their moments to shine as well, because they were just trying to do the best that they could do?
That is a beautiful question and very well framed, because and very observant, because it was extraordinarily important to us. There's a running theme through my shows that focuses on systemic failure. One was on, you know, regarding patient safety. One was on mental health. This one is about systemic failure of the police to stop John Wayne Gacy because of various prejudices. And so, yes, part of the show is about how the Chicago Police Department had multiple opportunities to be able to stop him over the years and couldn't either connect the dots or allow their prejudices to influence their decision making. But it would be very easy to demonize the police, and we go to great lengths to not do that. We are 100% exploring how Chicago failed. But on the flip side, and to your beautiful point, right, there were all of these officers who dedicated months of their lives to going through the pit, to trying to find and identify every victim. And for many of these men, it was entirely men. They may not have used the term PTSD, but they were suffering PTSD at the end of what they went through. And I think it is extraordinarily important to tell the truth about where there were failures, but also absolutely tell the truth and laud the police for what they went through and for what they did and what they continue to do. Right. Chicago is continuing to this day to try to identify the final victims any way that they can. And so we need to laud them for that.
Yeah, I love that about the show, separating out the failure of institutions and systems versus the heroic actions of individuals, and not lumping them together, because so often they do that. Yeah.
I love this show. I love what it does because I'm a big true crime person. So like getting to see something where it is different and it's not the same kind of rinse and repeat was very important to me. And so thank you guys. I can't wait for everyone else to get to see it. And so thank you for your time today.
Thank you. Have fun at
Thank you.
Comic-Con.
Yeah, enjoy
I
Comic.
will. Thank you.
Yeah.